What's going on, everyone? This is Cadman Cycling. Welcome back to the channel. Back at it again with another Zwift race. This time we're in Central Park. This is the 3R Laguardia Loop reverse flat race. 6 total laps around Central Park. Not the full loop, much shorter laps for a total of 11.9 miles or 19.1 kilometers and 162 meters of elevation gain. So a pretty short race, not a whole lot of climbs or hills, and this is a mixed category race. So my final standings, I'm really just racing against the C category, and the start pen was all C category, but there were other start pens who all started at the same time and are racing together. So makes for some interesting strategy throughout the race that we'll talk about a little bit later. As we see, we're already here in kind of a mix of some C's and D's, and a lot of the A's and B's started ahead of time. But the first thing to note in this race is that mixed category start really created a faster start for a lot of the C riders, at least for me in particular. Definitely noticed I was pushing high watts for much longer in this race than I'm used to at the start of Zwift races. Any Zwift race is a tough start, but this one kind of sustained that way for the first couple minutes. And I think that kind of brings about the first strategy is a lot of the C riders were trying to get off to a fast start to try to catch on the tails of the A's and B's. And actually did so successfully. I think A's and B's started in a pen that was a little bit further up. So generally they're able to create a gap to avoid this kind of tail gunning. But if you start fast enough as a C or D, I think you're still able to jump on with a lot of the B's. So some of the riders in the C category did that here. I tried to start fast, but also realized that I didn't want to completely burn myself out in the first mile. And didn't really have that strategy from the start. Wasn't sure where the pens were, how the B's and C's and other categories would mix together. So that was my first mistake, actually. So we can see on the right-hand side, there's a couple C's that are 3 seconds ahead, and actually kind of formed a large group with a lot of the other B riders. And here I'm kind of stuck in no man's land. I have this one other rider with me, another rider a second behind me. But without the group size that they have up there, there's no way we're going to catch them, at least not quickly, without putting in a huge effort. And again, we're so early on in the race. I really don't want to put in that huge effort because I know it'll hurt me more than it helps. Just to try to put in the effort to bridge that gap, I probably wouldn't be able to stay with that group ahead of me for much longer if I was even able to catch them. So with that being said, we're kind of in this small group of 3 of us now, and I'll just focus on this group, try to continue to push the pace. If that group in front of us does slow down, it'll help if we continue pushing this pace, and maybe we can get a few other riders who either drop off the group in front of us or bridge up to us to get a larger group and start pushing higher speeds. And at this point in the race, I can see those 2 other C riders just because I see them on the right-hand screen, now 9 seconds ahead. But I'm not sure how many other C riders are up there. I kind of get an idea that it's between 2 and 4. But again, don't know exactly what place I'm in the race. I just look at the group around me. And this red rider next to me is also a C rider. So I'll kind of stick with him for the time being, see if we can get a group together with maybe a few B's or even a few of the D's as well, and try to push. So this was actually a back-to-back race. I had raced the day before at Crit City. I've kind of been able to jump on Zwift a bit more lately. So just jumped on 2 straight days. So we'll see how the legs feel here. Overall, pretty good at the start. It was a tougher start, but the heart rate stayed low. Legs are feeling all right. It's more just thinking about the race strategy here. Again, it's tougher to push in these small groups. It's easy to get comfortable. So I'll try to focus on taking turns when I can as I'm coasting down this hill and avoiding doing work, but kind of a different strategy than in Crit City. In Crit City, I kind of hang in the middle to the back of the pack and try to do no work on the front. In this case, I realized that we do need to make up time. There's riders ahead of me in the race, 62 riders in total across categories, and kind of sitting at 33rd right in the middle of the pack. But there are C riders that I'm racing against that are ahead of me. So I will do work, try to get this group going, see how that works out. And we went ahead and skipped ahead 4 miles. So we saw the first 2 miles of the race. Now we're at 6.2 miles. Not a whole lot changed. If you notice some of the group composition, this is actually the same group of riders. So we have a B rider, we have a D rider, and then us 2 C riders. So again, heart rate's a little bit higher now. We're 184, 185, just later in the race. But again, kept it pretty steady for the last, we're on the 3rd lap now, just nearing the end of the 3rd lap. So just a little over halfway through the race, keeping it steady, but definitely losing time. And early on, that other group of C's was about 9 seconds ahead, and they were just in such a large group, they continued to push, that at this point, I think they're 30 or 40 seconds ahead. But it is nice, kind of feel like I'm getting back into the swing of things on these Zwift races. Kind of running into the last couple months to enjoy the warm weather, depending on where you live in the world. But if we're lucky, at least where I live, we have a couple more months. And then winter's here, so that probably means more Zwift riding in the near future. And I'm thinking I guess I would call it the start of my Zwift career, but I've really just kind of focused on doing these races for fun. But if I get more into it over this winter, I might try to do one of the training programs, possibly the FTP Builder, to see if I can make that jump from the C category to the B category and become a better rider overall. I think I do much better in these short races, but I don't quite have the endurance for the longer races or to make it up long climbs and long stretches of hills. So definitely something that I'll work on going forward. So jumping back to this race, there's a group of 2 B riders that kind of realized they were in no man's land. So they slowed down a little bit and tried to join this group, as I had a quick trainer drop out there, but luckily it came back online extremely quickly. But these 2 B riders kind of slowed down, decided to join our group to see if we can up the speed a little bit. Always helps to have a few more riders taking turns. So now it's a group of 5 of us, 3 B riders, I believe. Maybe 3 B riders, 2 C riders, and a D rider. So it's actually a group of 6. And we just get passed by a few other riders very quickly, though. And I think those were A riders, actually. So they kind of passed quick enough. It wasn't worth it to put the dig in to try to catch up to them. It looks like one of the B riders tried to do that, and he's getting chased by other B riders. But again, I enjoy being in this group. I think we move faster in this group. But at the end of the day, I'm really only racing against this other rider in the reddish pink jersey next to me. There's the 6th. So this other Zwift rider is the D rider. And he actually ended up winning the D race. I'm not sure what the watts per kilo were, but I saw he got first at the end in the D category. So 4 miles left. And on the top right screen, I notice a big blob of riders approaching. Again, these are probably riders that are A and B cat, actually lapping us. So kind of how at the start of the race, the first few C riders were able to jump on the Bs. I'm thinking I might take a try at that same strategy and see if I can up the watts. And while I know I can't stick with these riders for 4 miles all the way to the end of the race, I'm thinking if I can stick with them for just a couple minutes, I might be able to create large enough of a gap to at least catch those couple of B riders that got off the front. I know whenever I get dropped out of the back of this group, I don't want to be on my own necessarily, because I think I'll get caught by the group I was just in. But if I can stick with this group long enough, and maybe join back up with these B riders ahead of me, it could be a strategy that would keep me at least ahead of that other C rider that I was riding with. So that was kind of the split second decision I made. I looked at that top right map and decided to give it a go. My legs were feeling pretty good. Heart rate was pretty steady in the 180s. So I decided with just 4 miles left to give it a go. But it hurt. It took a lot out of me. So we can see here I start to get dropped. And the second I realized I was getting spit out the back, I didn't completely ease off it, but I didn't try to kill myself to stay on the back, because I realized there are still more than 3 miles left. So in the end, I didn't even stay with that group for half a mile, maybe exactly half a mile. And it took a lot out of me. The heart rate's back up there. So again, I'm kind of stuck in no man's land. I'm looking at the right side of the screen. I made up 6 seconds on the other riders that I was with in that original group. So again, still kind of in no man's land with over 3 miles left. That's still a lot of time. I'm going to see if I can stick with this other B rider ahead of me. Because ideally, and now 11 seconds in front of that group, if I can kind of join on with a few other riders, I might be able to stay ahead of that group. So I kind of skipped ahead. That other B rider ended up getting forward. He's now 13, 14 seconds ahead of me. But there's this one more B rider that dropped back, Ayuhara, that I'm thinking maybe I can work with him. We have a 9-second gap on that group behind me. So we rode together. I didn't capture the whole piece of it here, but we rode together for maybe 3 or 4 minutes. And what I kind of realized is he wasn't doing any work. So he had no interest in kind of staying ahead of this group behind us. He was just interested in kind of staying in my draft. So I made sure not to push it too hard, sitting around 200 watts, but not really going much higher. Kind of realizing that we are going to get caught by the group behind me that I was originally with, and it might be worth it to start saving my energy for the final sprint if we do end up bunching back together. So I kind of decide to lay off the gas now that they're just 4 seconds behind, down all the way to 120 watts. I'm going to let this group catch me, try to jump on, and basically that's going to set up a sprint finish at the end. Smaller group sprint finish, and again, not for the C category win, as there's, again, at this point in the race, I'm still not sure. Anywhere from 2 to 4 C riders ahead of me. But I've tried a few different strategies. That's what really made this race interesting, is I felt like there were, with the mixed categories, it can be controversial as I try to catch back on this group. So this, again, a lot of the same composition I was originally with, and I probably should have had the speed a little bit higher. I have to put in a bit of an effort here to make sure I don't fall off the back, but it can be kind of controversial, these strategies in these mixed category races, kind of using other categories to your advantage against your own category racers. But that's how it is in these races. So I think when you sign up for them, that's kind of what you have to expect, and just look at it with a completely different strategy. I think it definitely made the race more interesting in terms of there's a lot of different tactics that were played. At Crit City, I kind of just jump on the group and try to hang in there as long as I can. Here, I felt like I was making many more decisions throughout the race, whether to try to jump on a group that was passing me, whether to do work in a small group, whether to kind of take the foot off the pedal a little bit and let a group behind me catch me. So all of that being said, we tried a lot of those different tactics, but kind of ended up exactly where we were about half a mile to a mile into this race, with a lot of this same group is back together. So similar composition. We have, looks like a B rider or two. Again, me and my other C rider friend, and one D rider. So here, kind of a mile out, and there's really no groups around us. A few of those other B riders that we were riding with earlier are now 36 seconds ahead. And I see a few C riders about 28 seconds, 41 seconds behind. So I know that with less than a mile left, this is the group. So legs are still feeling all right, even with the short race the day before, still feeling pretty good. Heart rate's at 190, so it's definitely up there, but with less than a mile, very much to be expected. I think if my heart rate was any lower, I'd kind of be worried that maybe I wasn't putting in enough energy to pick up the speed during the race. So it's all about positioning. I've been working on these sprints recently. I think a lot of times I found myself going too late, so I've been working on being a little bit more punchy. Still kind of reacting based on when I see someone else go first, but trying to be a bit more snappy and be at the front of the pack. So when I do see someone go, I can immediately jump on their wheel, and kind of I'll look to be ready to go around that 0.2 mile mark. And this is where I'm thinking about switching to kilometers. It would be much easier to dial up these sprints, being able to see how many meters you have left here rather than miles. It's much more exact in meters, so I might make that switch sometime soon. But anyway, right where I want to be, 0.3 miles left, in this small group. Again, not a large group sprint, just 3 or 4 of us. So I'm in the perfect position, right where I want to be. If someone makes a move for the sprint, I'm ready for it. So I'll start upping the watts a little bit. 225, 242, 260. No one's really gone yet. We see one person start to go off the front, but again, not too far away. And then I see this red orange jersey start to go, and now we're only at 500 feet. So this is where I just completely step on it, give it everything I have, right where I want to be in the draft. Comes down to me and this other rider, and I just edge it out at the line. So again, didn't go very early, but that's because no one went early. I was punchy enough that once I saw someone go, I was able to step on it. And yeah, I was able to finish the race first in that group. And I did get second on Zwift Power. So there were a few riders ahead of me in the C group. I think it was actually 3 riders up above me, but got second in Zwift Power. So for those who hung in there, thanks for watching. I appreciate you being here. This is Cadman Cycling, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.